there's an undeniable art to making something feel both intimate and grand. Few films capture this duality quite like Terrence Malick's The New World. It's a film that doesn't just tell a story, it immerses you in a world, one so vivid and alive that you can almost feel the breeze rustling through the trees or hear the whispers of the river. But beneath its breathtaking beauty lies something deeper, something more haunting. A meditation on love, identity, and the fragile balance between humanity and nature. It's not just a historical drama about the collision of cultures, it's a philosophical journey that asks what happens when two worlds, two ways of being, collide. And in that collision, how do we find ourselves? When I first watched The New World, I wasn't prepared for how it would linger with me. It's not a film that reveals itself all at once. Instead, it unfolds like a piece of music, layer by layer, note by note, inviting you to sit with its questions rather than rushing to answer them. What struck me almost immediately was Malick's use of silence, something which he utilizes far more than dialogue throughout the course of the film. The characters speak sparingly, but their inner worlds are laid bare through lingering gazes, quiet gestures, and poetic voiceovers. It's a story told as much in what is unsaid as in what is spoken, a story of transformation, both personal and cultural, told through fractured identities, fleeting moments of connection, and a profound reverence for the natural world. And yet, for all its grandeur, it feels deeply human. At its heart is, of course, Pocahontas, a figure often mythologized in history, but here rendered with stunning complexity. Through her eyes, we witness not just the birth of a new world, but the loss of an old one. And perhaps most poignantly, we witness her search for belonging in a world that seems intent on erasing who she is. At its core, The New World is about contact, not just between two cultures, but between humanity and nature itself. The arrival of English settlers in Virginia isn't presented as a triumphant moment of discovery, but as something far more ambiguous, a disruption that ripples outward into every corner of life. From the very beginning, Malick's reverence for nature is palpable. The film opens with sweeping shots of untouched wilderness, rivers winding through dense forests, sunlight filtering through leaves, and the skies stretching endlessly above. These images aren't just beautiful, they're sacred. They remind us of what the world looked like before humanity imposed itself upon it. And the poet and people are depicted as living in harmony with this natural world, a stark contrast to the colonizers' mindset of domination and extraction. Yet Malick brilliantly avoids turning this into a simplistic dichotomy. He shows us moments of misunderstanding and violence on both sides, reminding us that no culture is without its flaws. What fascinates me here is how Malick frames these encounters, not as mere historical events, but as existential ones. The settlers view the land, and by extension its people, as something to conquer and reshape. The Powhatans, on the other hand, see it as sacred and interconnected. This tension raises profound questions. Can humanity ever truly live in harmony with nature, or are we doomed to destroy what we don't understand? And then there's the land itself, a silent character in this story. It watches as these two worlds collide, bearing witness to both beauty and destruction. It made me wonder how often we forget that the Earth isn't just a resource, but arguably a living thing. And what does it mean when we lose our connection to it? At the heart of The New World is Pocahontas, a character who has often been reduced to myth or symbol in popular culture, but here feels achingly real. Played by Q'orianka Kilcher with extraordinary depth and vulnerability, Pocahontas becomes more than just a historical figure. She becomes a vessel for exploring identity itself. In her early scenes, Pocahontas radiates harmony. She moves through her world with an ease that suggests she belongs completely, to her people, to her land, and to herself. But as she becomes entangled with John Smith, played by Colin Farrell, and later John Rolfe, played by Christian Bale, her sense of self begins to fracture. One of the most striking moments in the film comes when Pocahontas is renamed to Rebecca after being taken into English society. It's more than just a simple name change though, it's an act of erasure. In being reborn into this new culture, she loses her connection to her old one. Watching this unfold led me to think about how identity is shaped, not just by who we are, but by how others expect us to be. And yet, despite everything she endures, betrayal, loss, exile, there's a quiet strength in Pocahontas that refuses to be extinguished. Even in her darkest moments, there's a sense that she's searching for something deeper, a way to reconcile these two worlds within herself. Malick captures this inner journey through voiceovers that feel less like narration and more like fragments of thought or memory. The purpose of these voiceovers is not to explain or narrate. Instead, they evoke, immersing us in the subjective experiences of the characters. In the case of Pocahontas, they guide us through her internal struggles, her moments of awe and resilience, whilst also revealing the internal spiritual dialogue which she maintains with Mother Earth. Through this approach, Malick allows us to feel her journey rather than simply observe it, effectively blurring the lines between her inner world and our own. The relationships between Pocahontas, John Smith, and John Rolfe aren't just romantic subplots, they're central to the film's exploration of love as transformation. John Smith represents possibility, the allure of something new and uncharted. His love for Pocahontas, although intense, feels less like true connection and more like projection. He sees her not as she is, but as he wants her to be, an embodiment of freedom and purity, which is in stark contrast to his own disillusionments. Rolfe, on the other hand, offers something different, something quieter, but perhaps more enduring. His love lacks Smith's fiery passion, but is rooted in acceptance and stability. In the final act of the film, when Pocahontas chooses Rolfe over Smith, it feels less like settling and more like growth, a recognition that love isn't always about intensity. Sometimes it's about finding peace. This dynamic raises fascinating questions about what we as humans seek in relationships. Are we looking for someone who challenges us or someone who grounds us? And can we ever truly love another person without projecting our own desires onto them? One of Malick's most profound achievements in this film is how he uses geography as a metaphor. The titular New World isn't just America, it's also an internal landscape, a place where characters go to confront their deepest fears and desires. For John Smith, the New World is initially a utopia, a chance to start over and cleanse himself of past failures. But as reality sets in, his dream crumbles under the weight of human greed and violence. Similarly, Pocahontas' journey from Virginia to England mirrors her inner transformation. She loses her connection to her homeland, but gains a new understanding of herself. Malick seems to suggest that new worlds aren't found by crossing oceans, they're discovered within us through moments of profound change. This idea resonates deeply because it speaks to our universal longing for renewal. How often do we chase external changes, new jobs, new relationships, when what we're really seeking is an internal shift from within? Time flows differently in the New World. Malick's use of natural light and his preference for long takes create a sense of timelessness, as if we're watching events unfold outside the constraints of linear time. This approach invites reflection on memory and mortality. Pocahontas' story is ultimately tragic. She dies young after enduring immense loss. Yet, Malick frames her life not as a series of events, but as part of something larger than herself, a continuum where individual lives ripple outward into eternity. It made me wonder, how do we find meaning in lives that are so fleeting? Is it enough to leave behind traces, memories, or relationships that endure beyond our time? These are existential questions without easy answers, but they linger long after the credits roll. Among the many profound moments in the New World, arguably the most significant quote of the entire film is spoken not by a central figure, but surprisingly by a relatively more minor character, Pocahontas' carer, Mary, whose poignant reflection distills the film's central themes.
Think of a tree, how it grows round its roots. If a branch breaks off, it don't stop, but keeps reaching towards the light.
This quiet, unassuming line from Pocahontas' carer carries the soul of the New World, a film steeped in the beauty and pain of existence. It speaks to the resilience of life, the way it bends and stretches through suffering, yet always seeking the light. This idea finds its heartbreaking culmination in Pocahontas' final words, where on her deathbed she says, "All things must die. 'Tis enough that you, our child, should live." Her final acceptance of mortality is not a resignation but a profound surrender to life's continuity. And this is where the poetic thread really wraps up. In the closing shot of the film, we see a tree reaching skyward, and thus the earlier metaphor returns with aching clarity. Pocahontas, like a broken branch, is gone, yet her life has uniquely shaped the world she leaves behind. And so the tree grows on, scarred but unyielding, carrying her spirit forward in its quiet ascent towards the light, a testament to endurance, transformation, and the fragile beauty of what remains. In summary, The New World isn't just a historic biopic. In fact, I would argue that the historic context of the film actually takes a back seat. Instead, the setting is utilised as a framework, a backdrop, or a vehicle, if you will, for exploring deeper themes of humanity at its most fragile and profound. The film mirrors life itself, messy, beautiful, and full of contradictions, yet undeniably meaningful. As a result, what Malick crafts is a cinematic poem, a profound meditation on love, loss, nature, and identity. It's a film that doesn't provide easy answers, but instead invites us into its rhythms and drawn-out silences to find our own truths. As we reflect on Pocahontas' journey from freedom to captivity to self-discovery, I can't help but be reminded that life itself is a series of transformations. We are constantly navigating between worlds, between who we were, who we are, and who we might become. So, I leave you with these questions. What does it mean to belong? How do we navigate change whilst balancing progress with preservation? And, in our search for new worlds, whether physical or emotional, what parts of ourselves do we risk leaving behind?